Welcome to the Founders Foyer with me, Ashwarya. This foyer is full of conversations. The space where creators, founders, and builders look for all the support and concepts to grow their ideas into products. Being a product builder is like continuously thinking about one's craft and discovering ways to make it better each time. Product mindset is more of a lifetime journey and learning. And the best way it can be done is finding a set of peers and folks that you look up to and actually doing it together as a community. Today, we're going to be diving deep into the inception of one such product community and the experiences of the founder behind it. Carlos Gonzalez de Villambrisia is an entrepreneur with over 15 years of building product experience. He founded the Product School in 2014, which is the global leader in product training. All of their instructors are seasoned product people working on top silicon companies, including Google, Meta, Netflix, Airbnb, Uber, and Amazon. Prior to Product School, he founded Flock, the largest online education marketplace in Spanish and Portuguese at the same time. Hi, Carlos. So good to have you on the show, and thank you so much for joining.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let's dive into understanding how you were into this product journey. So from being a child good at numbers and video games and once dreaming of becoming a soccer player to now building a community-led company with more than 2 million members as we spoke. What led you into this journey, Carlos, and what was this ride like?
I love that first question. You definitely did your research. Yeah, so I'm originally from Spain, living in Silicon Valley. My dad was a doctor, my mom was a lawyer, and I hate
Mhm.
that, like I wasn't going to be able to follow my parents' steps, even though they really wanted to. So I was just a curious kid, and numbers was good. I was good with numbers. I like video games, and I think I was so naive at that point that I was like, by elimination, it seems like engineering seems like a good thing. Hopefully I can
Mm.
play more video games or do something fun. It wasn't the case at all. But that's how kind of I started. And then I soon realized that even though, yes, I am good with numbers, I learned how to build with code, I didn't want to spend the rest of my life
Mm.
coding. And
Mm.
unfortunately, didn't even know what I wanted. I just knew what I didn't want. Product management wasn't even in the cards, it
Yeah.
wasn't an option back in the day. So I decided to come to Silicon Valley. That was always my dream, to be close to my idols in tech, like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and all of these people. And the way for me to do it was as a student. So I came to Silicon Valley, a business school, and I also had an opposite reaction to when I was in engineering school,
Mhm.
which is, okay, like I'm reading books and learning business in theory, but in reality, like it's hard to apply this stuff, some of that's very high level and it's also not what I really want to do. So I ended up finding that perfect sweet spot in between engineering and business, which is product, and
Mm.
ultimately create a solution to my own problem, which is the school I wish I had when I was growing my career in product management.
Wow, that's quite a journey, and I totally agree with you because there are times that you kind of start to realize that you're interested in something, but as you go deeper into that, you kind of also see other branches opening up. So I'm glad you stepped into whatever product management is today, because like you said, a lot of it is shaped over time. And I'm sure when you thought about it, it was never probably like product management or never had this phrase with it. So it's kind of exciting because I love when you kind of do the role and then figure out a name around it. That's how most best careers are built on. Like you do the job and then you realize that, oh, like that's how it's done. And, you call this way. So it's kind of nice how you stumbled into product management. And Carlos, I think you got this segue into what I was going to ask you next, which is, like this whole thing about how did you relate with this school as a background or the whole edtech concept as a background? Because I know your first and second startups, the ones that you tinkered around with, also tend to be in the same edtech space. And I think it was started in Spain, like you said, how where you started your journey. So from there to starting another company such as Product School in the same edtech space, what was it that shaped you to do something in this education domain? Was it like your personal itch or like a need to have skills training or like I'm so curious to know that.
I have a love-hate relationship with education.
Hmm.
And the hate part is that as a student, I not always had awesome experiences. I wasn't always inspired by the professors. And I was always questioning, but why? Well, why am I learning this thing if I don't want to be like the person who's teaching it? Or how
Mm,
am I going to be able to make money or apply this in the real world? And I wasn't able to get those answers in the traditional education system. So I still did it because
mm,
that was what my parents wanted me to do. But as soon as I was able to be more independent, I was like, you know what? I can actually create solutions. And so I've been in education my entire life because the love part is that I believe in education.
mm.
I consider myself a lifelong learner. I think education is key in life. And I've been trying to solve my own problems first and foremost, as probably many founders. And then obviously as we scale companies, hope that there are other customers who resonate with that same problem. So my first company was a nonprofit. Second company
Mm.
was venture backed, and product school was bootstrapped for the
Yeah.
first 7 years. And then we're 10 years old. As you mentioned, now the community is over 2 million product professionals from all over the world. So in year
Yeah.
7, we decided to raise capital from a private equity firm.
Nice. Yeah. And it's also very evident how some of those experiences that shape us end up, like taking us on a lifelong journey. And I'm glad that you had that relationship with learning because I think most of us, and for whatever it is, large part of product management is questioning the why. And we tell people that you have to ask questions about why you're doing something and if it's really good. So it's kind of nice how you related that with education and sort of like ask questions around why you're learning this and why is it really necessary. And I think you're also doing like the entire thing to change how education is now more backed with experiential learning. I'm sure that for folks who take the certifications with product school, they kind of understand how a lot of this is very experiential with people who actually do the job. So that's actually a nice twist to how education is reformed with product school.
Yeah, and I would like to expand on how we're actually reforming that and
Mhm.
what makes this unique. So I mentioned before that I wasn't always inspired by my professors, and I think a big part of that is because I believe that sometimes the best teachers are not
Mm.
teachers, they are practitioners.
Yeah.
And especially in areas like product, right, where it's very new and things are changing so fast. I
Mm.
want to learn from the real doers, the ones who are literally building the products that are used by millions, myself included. And that's something that I brought
Mm.
to product school. Like the instructors at product school are not teachers. They're actually keeping their full-time jobs at
Exactly.
some of the best Silicon Valley companies that are Google, Airbnb, Netflix, you name it. And that is something awesome about that. I think the other piece as a student in traditional
Mm.
system, I was there because my parents wanted me to be there. And I
Mm.
appreciate that push that taught me resilience. But at the same time, I was there. I didn't make that decision myself. Like here at product school, the people are here because they want to. Like they already understand they want to grow their careers in product, either because they want to get that first job, or maybe they are already an existing experienced PM that wants to become a
Mm.
VP of product. So when you put together a small cohort of people who are hungry to learn something they really care about, they're not here to get credits, or participation trophies. And
Yeah.
you also bring an instructor who is heavily incentivized because they resonate with that problem. They probably didn't go to product school. We didn't
Mm.
exist 15 years ago. There is magic.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I hear you. And as a PM myself, and like really building stuff at work and also being able to, let's say, transfer the learning that I have to another person. As let's say I'm an instructor, I would love to do it. So I can imagine how good it must be for these instructors to come together and sort of like transfer what they've learned. And you made a very powerful point about the willingness to learn because I feel that the intent is captured very rightly by the community like product school because you're sort of tapping on to whatever the intrinsic feeling of every product person would be, which is to always stay hungry and to always like become a better version of themselves at work and also personally. So there's this whole thing about no, I don't have to like convince you, but I know that you have this right intent and you are at the right place. So I like how, as from a business perspective too, it does go to a community like this because you're attracting the right set of people and that's because you know what they really care about. So yeah, I think when you stitch those points, it makes sense. And yeah.
The reality about this is that connecting those points always makes sense in the future, right? Like, but
Oh yes.
and I think and I think that is part of the process in general.
Yeah.
That's what I was describing at
True,
the
true.
beginning. Yes, we've been around for over 10 years, right? So in many ways, it feels like an overnight success, but it's been 10 years in the making when some of these assumptions weren't that clear.
So true. And that's exactly how, like a journey should be. So my question would be like, how did you validate this, Carlos? So let's say 10 years ago when perhaps product management was not even a phrase or not even what different companies were optimizing for. How did you validate? And to me, product school looks like the whole product in itself. So how did you know that this product that you're building is actually like going one step further at a time?
I love that question because I think, so what I'm going to share, it's probably counterintuitive to many. I validated this by doing it. There wasn't enough data out there. In fact, I would argue the data out there would invalidate that there is a
Mm,
need for this. Because we're
mm,
talking about a point in time, this is 2014, when
yeah.
there weren't really that many companies hiring product managers. They weren't that many chief product officers.
Mm,
So the obvious thing to do was maybe other skills such as coding or design. So we became that first non-coding school focused on product. And I did it myself, like I bootstrapped, right? And
mm,
I didn't want to borrow money in order to
mm,
test an idea. I just knew from the bottom of my heart that this is a problem that I wanted to solve for myself first and foremost. And I just went for it. So it was pure intuition, grit. And so I was the first instructor. I created the first version of the program. I was doing sales. I was doing customer support. I did it all, probably for too long. But
the right
it was
PM to the product.
literally, but that was the ultimate validation, right? I had no safety net. I had to give it a shot. And I knew I
Mm,
had a very short period of time because I had to make money in order to survive. So we, in that sense, also got lucky. So I took the risk, but I also got lucky because we found
mm,
product market fit very quickly. A lot of people, especially in San Francisco, resonated with the idea of breaking into product. And I also didn't need that many clients at that time because I was running a pretty small operation. It was just me as the instructor, right? So 6, 7 people showed up, paid a little bit of money, and that was the beginning of product school. I mean, today it's a whole different story, but that was a very humble beginning.
yeah, no, I can totally imagine it like way back in the time. And because you mentioned about San Francisco, just a quick clarification. So, would you always credit the place or the fact that you started there to be like very helpful, or like did it start as a in-person cohort or was it always like online even when you started it?
When we started, we were in person
Ah,
because
okay.
I was in the instructor and I wanted to test that quickly and didn't need that much scale. I just needed validation that
Right.
enough people would care about this and were willing to pay for it, right? But as we started scaling, then we rapidly moved our operations online. So today,
Mm.
all the trainings delivered by Product School are live online. And I
Mm-hmm.
emphasize the word live because I think it's a big differentiator. It's
Yes.
one is obviously having great practitioners who are training you, but also they are doing it live in a small cohort. So you really get to
Mm.
know them. They get to know you. You are building together. This is not a set of
Mm.
videos that you just watch and, don't really know how that's going to change your behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was a time I think people really felt like this whole online education was a trap because of the fact that there were recorded videos. And as much as I think there's one group to argue that, oh, like you can watch these videos on demand, so it's great. But I think it's also like to a fact that for most of us humans, it's kind of very hard to keep up the pace of a recorded video and feel the same energy and connect as much as you would do with, like either in person or at least the one that could replicate, which is the live cohort. So it's kind of nice how you were one of those pioneers of cohort courses, like even before the term could perhaps go very viral, which is what is happening today, like the last couple of years. So it's nice. Like, I mean, like I would have really loved to, take one of those in person, like what was I doing in 2014? I was perhaps in college, but like I would have loved to, check out some of these because it sounds very much as to, oh, like if you care about learning, then this is like the space that you would want to be and just explore. So I'm so glad that you started this, and yeah, like you said, in the hindsight it connects all the dots. But I'm so glad you went through
Exactly.
some of those challenges too, because it shaped what product school is today.
Yes, and I think the online aspect is actually better, not just easier to scale, because
Mhm.
it's giving anyone in the world access to the best Silicon Valley product leaders.
Yes.
Right? Like the instructors are most of the like the reality that you were asking me before about location. The highest
Mm,
concentration of the top 1% product leaders is in San Francisco, Silicon Valley.
mm,
That's just a fact. So now you do not need to be in San Francisco in order to really learn from the best. And I think that is a huge value add for anyone.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree on that. And thanks to, I think, the internet and the way that this access has gotten very much easier with people. And also tapping on that intent also became easier. And see, I think the connect is also the fact that if I can perhaps like, I mean, I view the podcast as also the same thing because it's like if I can connect with Carlos, then there's so much that I can learn. So I guess like that's the way that people always look up to another peer or another instructor because for them it's always like, hey, like if this barrier for me to connect with this person is going to go one step low, then it kind of gives me this room to say, okay, I am now very much in like the same space as this person, so I can ask whatever I want, or I can learn whatever it is. So yeah, like I definitely agree with this point about access and how a lot of these things have been very equalized with the way internet has helped.
Yeah. I think there's
Yeah.
this common quote, popular quote that says that talent is equally distributed, but access to opportunity is not.
Mhm.
And I resonate with that because this is a high concentration of talent,
Mhm.
tech in Silicon Valley, in particular in product. So finding ways to give access to that opportunity to people who are hungry and very talented to grow is something important. And obviously, talent access is one, price is another one, and other dimensions to that. I think that just to touch on on the price point, that's another thing that I didn't like about the traditional system. We've been kind of trained to learn full time until our mid 20s, and then we're supposed to work full time until we retire. And that's pretty much it. It's like a binary solution. And I
Loop.
disagree with that. I think we can have it all. At least we should try to have it all,
Yeah.
right? That we can work, we can have a healthy life, we can have friends, we can invest in our body, we can invest in our mind. And I am a big fan of this type of lifelong solutions that are
Mhm.
flexible. So all of our trainings would happen on weeknights or weekends to really give people the opportunity to
Mhm.
add to their life instead of having to say, oh my God, I had to put my work on hold or something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. And it's also like now, I guess, with what started off as in SF has now like perhaps expanded to a lot of these other countries too, because I see a lot of instructors from across different parts of the globe to be a part. So that also brings in how maybe the timings and the whole slots that are available so that you don't have to feel very, complex about, oh, like this is daytime there and this is nighttime for me. And I have to like, really make up for it. Instead, it's like, yeah, like I go to work, but I can come back and do this, or it's my morning and I can do this. So I think it's also the ability to make the choice. So yeah, like 100%. Yeah.
I in a way treat product school as a product.
Yes.
And there is always, in all products, there's always a very positive sign, which is when you see your customers hacking your own product to get a different type of functionality that maybe you didn't even envision.
Hmm.
So that happened with us because when we started, we were optimizing all of our live online cohorts for Pacific time zone, like because
All
we said,
right.
well, the instructors are in Silicon Valley, so everybody has to make it work. But the
Mhm.
reality is that there's a lot of demand, not just in the US, but also in Europe, Latin
Yeah.
America, other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So when we started seeing people waking up at 3 a.m., literally
Mm.
from Germany to attend that class, it's like, oh my God, like, first of all, that's awesome. Like these people are
Yeah.
amazing. Plus, if we actually create a cohort at a time zone that is optimized for them,
Yeah.
we also don't need to push people that hard. And that was a really good indicator for us to start creating live cohorts that are optimized for different time
Mm.
zones.
Yeah, no wonder I kind of felt that product school as a community was product first and then, like community next. Cause like for you, I think looking at it from a very broader lens of, oh, like this is the product and how can this product capture like the intent of so many thousands of people and now today in millions across the world. I think it's like each part of it is learning. And to me, what also is exciting is mostly with respect to like, even though technically there's like instructors from different businesses, so one could argue that it is a very business focused product. I would also argue that it's a very consumer focused product, which means there's a lot of like irrational behavior. There's also like a lot of study about how people feel, how people think, and there's so much you get to learn by just observing your users.
Very counterintuitive thing about product that I found
Mhm.
out when I was starting. A lot of people would say you cannot
Mhm.
teach product because you need to have a vision. You need to be
Mhm.
born with certain product skills, and you cannot acquire them. That's just so not true. Sure, there's certain natural talent that you can be blessed with when you are
Mm,
born, but that is not the key differentiator. There's a lot of hard and soft skills that you can learn. And that was the thing that we wanted to do. And it applies to pretty much any skill in life. I think demystifying the role of product is very important because there's a lot of science and hard work that goes behind that. That the product leaders do not know what's going to
mm,
happen with their product a year from now. What they do know is they're going to figure it out. And sure, experience is going to teach you a lot, but you can
mm,
also accelerate your experience by investing in yourself. It's like going to the gym. First of all, just buying the membership is not going to get you in better shape. You have to show up.
yeah.
Obviously, if you show up, you are going to get in better shape. But if you show up with a personal trainer who's keeping you accountable, who is ensuring that you are doing things the right way, who's also looking at you holistically and making sure that you're sleeping well, you're eating
Mm,
the right things, that's ultimately going to accelerate your impact. So I think it's very important for anyone listening to realize that there is no playbook and
yeah.
that experience is just not enough either. Like investing in yourself, even if it's in a small way, just committing to that
Mm.
is very, very important. Otherwise, things won't just magically land on your lap.
Yeah, no, very true. And it's also like like how I was saying in the introduction, it's also a thing of doing smaller things every day. It's like a lifelong journey and learning. So it's not like you learn one night and then you kind of like excel the other day. So yeah, it's like smaller efforts, but then up for more of a long-term effect. Yeah,
Totally.
agreed. Yeah, yeah. We're talking about how principles, values, a lot of how balanced we should have our thoughts to be. There's also one aspect that makes me very curious about product school, which is like literally 90% of the available resources today for PMs, whether it is the best selling book that you have called the product book, whether it is some of your courses, the certifications, whether it's like 1,000 plus events that you conduct, or even the conference, Product Con, all of these tend to have like a free availability to it. And I say that there's so much knowledge work that goes on to put up some of this content and sort of build this community, right? So, what is your idea of growth for the platform and the tech society? And why do you do what you do with Product School? I mean, like, as much as people see it as a business and a community, what is the essence that you're really focusing on with respect to growth?
So I fundamentally believe in giving as much value upfront as
Hmm.
possible. And I believe that's good in two ways. One is good for the world. Like if you have a good product and you are sharing it with more people and you are giving them access to it, that's just good for them. But it's not just philanthropy, right? It's also good business because we are here for the long term.
Mm,
So we believe that if we can lead with value, we can establish that relationship, we can become that trusted brand that is helping you really wherever you are in your journey, then there might be opportunities down the line to also accelerate that learning with some of our paid offerings. So as you mentioned, our paid offerings are our certifications, right?
mm,
We do have a lot of free offerings. In fact, it's around 90%. So yes, the product book that I
mm,
published, I decided to make it free from the get-go. We host 4 conferences every year called ProductCon. We made them available. Yes, we sell some tickets for people who are in person, but we live
mm,
stream them for free. We have a job board. We have different templates. So I think it's a fundamental decision because a lot of companies are there. We say, well, we're community led. Well, first of all, being community led is not the only way to grow. But if you are committing to grow that way, it has to be for real. It has to be a long term commitment. It cannot be
mm.
a clickbait situation.
Right. Yeah. So it's more about like as much as it's product, it's community first and like product also first, but at the same time you're taking a balance with respect to what can be productized.
Yeah. Well, it's community first. Like we're building the largest community for product people,
Mm,
period. That's how I always define
mm,
product school. And within that community, we offer different products, right? We have our training products. We also
mm,
have conferences or the podcast and other type of free resources. In fact, that's something that also helped me scale the business in a counterintuitive way. Because when we started, we were 100% focused on B2C consumers, individuals who take our
mm,
public trainings. But then we realized that all of them had full-time jobs. in many cases, they were actually being reimbursed by their employers. So
Mm.
that gave us the opportunity to then go to those companies and say, hey, you know that you are a client already. There are multiple people here swiping your credit card. And that's ultimately became the largest business for us. Like, it's a
Mm.
lot of things that, people do not see on our website. But the largest business for product school is actually those private trainings that we do for large enterprises as they navigate digital transformation.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's a very interesting take because like doing something and experimenting with it is also giving you like another pathway to think about. And in this case, it's particularly like another business model to crack and like go in that direction. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's hard to measure ROI of community or in
Mm.
general, measure ROI of everything. So it's also like a risky decision you have to make as a leader. Like if you are
Mm.
investing in this long term, you can't just fully attribute every single thing that someone does to
Mm.
a specific channel. You
Mm.
also have to believe that you are doing something that is good. Obviously, the more you can measure, the better. But also there has to be that belief, right? So for me, sometimes I find out someone would join one of our trainings and would message me and say, Carlos, I met you 5 years ago. I read your book or I attended your conference. And like, that's so awesome because I that wasn't registered on my CRM, and I wasn't doing that for that reason. But I love to know that there is definitely value underneath some of these long-term
Mm.
pre-investments that we're making.
Right. Yeah. And because you generally are up on, I think, the large part of the stats, which necessarily doesn't have to be like a CRM kind of a thing, but more so with respect to how product people fare and what kind of excites them over time with the association with product school. I want to understand, are there like any trends that you're spotting in the product space, especially the product management and the founder circles? What does the data say? And are you like trying to see some good patterns or findings out of this?
That's one of my favorite parts of my job, actually, because I
Mhm.
get to spend a lot of time with my favorite people, right? The product leaders who are shaping the future. So I also have a podcast, and I'm the one asking those questions and kind of connecting those dots. And obviously, a lot
Okay.
of the companies that we train, then we get a sense of what's really happening. So
Mm.
yes, every year we actually create a report titled "The Future of Product," and we make it available to anyone for free. So for the 2025 version, I can give you a sneak peek.
Oh, yeah, that would be
uh,
great.
so there are three. I always like to summarize things in three, like a lot of
Mm.
consultants. I
Rule
think
of
it's easier to
thirds.
remember. Yes. So the three main things that we see. Number one is that the product teams are becoming much more accountable for revenue growth, not
Mm.
just for adding user value. That
Yeah.
is huge shift. That it's happening already. It's not that it will happen in 2025. No, we've been seeing that, but it's becoming now extremely mainstream, even in companies that are not high tech. Because traditionally, first of all, there was no product function, or at least it wasn't at the table. It was under
Mm.
a CTO or a CMO. Now it's at the
Mm.
table. But in order to stay at the table, you also need to deliver value for the business, not just for the user. So we're seeing
Yeah.
PMs that need to be much more accountable for go to market. They
Mm.
have to partner much more closely with sales. And there are cases where they're actually fully accountable for revenue when they are leveraging certain inbound channels, right? Like the website or a
Right.
mobile app. So that is a huge, huge trend. The other trend that we are seeing, and it's related to the product org and how those teams are, how those companies are defining product, it's that it's truly becoming more strategic. Like the reason
Mm.
why there's a C-level, a new C-level position is not because the CEO said, you know what, I have extra budget and I'm just going to create another chair. No, like the CPO is truly, truly a key part for driving strategy and making company money and returning and providing a return to shareholders. Otherwise, they
Mm.
wouldn't do it. So that has additional implications for the org. Now there is a
Right.
career ladder, right? It's not about becoming a PM and that's it. It's like, oh my
Mm.
God, there's ladders, right? You have different levels, senior PM, principal PM, director,
Mm.
VP, even CPO. We're also seeing adjacent functions, for example, product marketing or product growth. So that represents a great opportunity because companies are investing in product as a strategic function. Now, the caveat to that is that
Mm.
during this market situation, we're also seeing how the companies are trying to be much leaner. So there's less pure people manager role. So even at the VP level, we're seeing that they are still expected to be more of a player coach. I've
Yeah.
seen VPs of product that will still own a product or will work directly with
Mm.
certain groups of engineers while still managing other PMs. And I think that's healthy. Because that's also proving
Yeah,
that in order to be a good leader, you also need to be a good doer.
absolutely.
Um, and then the third trend that we are
Mm.
seeing is related to AI. Of course, we have to talk about AI, but I want to
Yeah.
do it in a tangible way for our product team. So
Mm.
we're seeing that a lot of roles in product are being replaced by AI, and those roles are typically project management roles or
Mm.
undercover product management roles, such as product owner, Scrum Master,
Yep.
Agile coach, because those roles are easier to replace than
Mm.
PM roles that are more strategic. And there is nothing against people who do the project management work. I'm just reporting on what I'm seeing in the market.
Yeah.
And I also think there's an opportunity for these people to become irreplaceable and leverage
Mm.
AI to truly become a 10x and be on the side of on the winning side, to be the ones who are now participating on how to augment their work instead of like just
Mm.
waiting for AI to replace them.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing these three trends, much more as a preview for sure. And one thing that I see as a common pattern for all these three, like big bets is that there's more focus on the value doing in the sense, whatever role you are in, which is like a PM or a senior PM or like a VP or CPO, like AI is into the picture, and there's also like a lot of value work that everybody gets to do. And I think that is always what has defined product, right? And maybe like there were some derailings in between where things were just so fragmented, and suddenly teams were very bloated, or whatever came in between to split the teams and make this whole scene as very fragmented approach. I think it's coming back to what it originally should be, which is like very tight knit product work and value work that everybody gets to participate in. And I think that's very exciting to know. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on product long term.
Hmm.
Like if I just look at the last 10 years where I've been in a privileged seat, looking at this evolve from being almost non-existent into now
Mm.
being the most strategic function for a company, I deeply believe that this is going to be even bigger in the next 10 years. But obviously, like in any trend, there are always setbacks. And I think we
Yeah.
just went through as a correction, which will make us stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I'm with you on that, because if not, then now there's all the more leverage for product people to get ideas into action, like ship better. So whatever excuses were there before, I think it's now getting more focused and getting to be more like about doing more than like talking about it. So I guess it's more about the action. So yeah, very much with you on that. And Carlos, because we're talking about AI, right? And there was definitely like, I wanted to get your thoughts on how AI is shaping not just PM or not just this whole org as such, but the way it's making everybody build what they want. I like how, tools and agents like what we see with Cursor, Replit, Claude, and a lot of these tools that we use today, they've made like work to be more AI enabled. Like anybody who has an idea can now develop an idea into an actual product, or at least like iteratively ship something and learn from this experience. So are you seeing the same potential in this? Like what's your thought on this shaping anybody to be in the product space? Yeah.
I think this is powerful. Yeah, I don't think I surprise anybody by saying that this AI thing is real. But the way I'm going to phrase it is connecting it to a pattern that I've
Mhm.
spotted, which is the rise of the no-code tools that happened around 5 to 6 years ago. Because
Mhm.
back in the day, a lot of the product managers were really piggybacking on tools that were created for other teams, right? So Photoshop wasn't created for PMs. We were using it to create some prototypes before Figma.
Yeah.
Or PowerPoint wasn't created for road mapping, but we were using it before we had tools such as Product Board or
Mm.
Analytics, same thing. Like we were using spreadsheets before we had Mixed Panel or Amplitude or others. So now there's an entire group of tools called the product tech. And those tools are covering all of the use cases for product teams. That's fascinating that
Mm.
now we can leverage that technology to our own benefit. The other piece to that is that technology is very visual. It doesn't require technical knowledge. And that is empowering an entire generation of builders, because now you don't need to be a software engineer in order to become a product manager. You do not need
Mm.
to know how to use SQL in order to speak to a database. You do
Yeah.
not need to be a designer in order to create a prototype. That's fascinating. And I think what we're seeing now with AI applied to product is that times 10x. Because we're still going to be able to build without a technical
Mhm.
background. Now you are going to be able to build much faster and much better, which I think it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. I like how you connected the no code with the AI part because I remember that a couple of years ago, like especially when COVID hit, so many apps like Glide, Softer, Adalo, like so many of these no code tools were just around and like just to compare the vibe, yes, because back then, very similar to how these no code tools excited people and made them think that some of their ideas could actually come to vision. You're right in saying that what we see is the same excitement, but exponentially, like, couple of times higher because the output is much, I would say, like much more robust than what we saw with no code. But yeah, like I certainly like relate with the examples that you shared. And I'm very excited to see how this whole phase goes though. Like with, let's say, filmmaking that's made easier with AI, or let's say something else that made is simple with AI. I'm also liking the intersections that come with it. Like, for example, personally for me, I'm like a product manager, like I'm a product builder by the day, but I also like tinker around with AI films in my night. And then there are like a bunch of people who kind of like do like the PM jobs in the day, and then in the night they're like building something with AI. So I'm really liking this possibility of how careers can be shifted, or how like possibilities can be built up with AI. So yeah.
That is a good point, because I'm going to answer that in two ways. One is we're seeing now a new wave of tools that are AI
Mm,
first, because what
mm,
they're being developed right now
yeah,
without any legacy, right? So they are truly putting AI at the core of what they're doing. There's also a
yeah,
bunch of product tools that were created in the last 10 years
mm,
that are adding AI functionality. For example, Notion is a great example, right, on how they can really embed AI into some of the existing features and make them much
mm,
more powerful. So all of that is a thing, it's undeniable. But the other thing that we are seeing is that it's not just about tools to increase productivity, because eventually those will become a commodity. At the end of the day, how many
mhm,
tools do you need to summarize what was discussed in a meeting? Or how many tools do you need to help you write an email? Like, those are things that are important, but ultimately, if you really want to differentiate yourself as a PM and try to 10x your impact, the other piece is truly figuring out how to incorporate Gen AI for your
mm.
product as the creator of that product, so your users get value. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, and I think that now all PMs need to do. And it's not about renaming the PMs to AI PMs. I believe that all PMs need to learn AI as part of their core skills, the same way there are others. And so on that note, we launched a certification called AI for Product, that it's all about helping PMs incorporate Gen AI as
Mhm.
part of their product strategy.
Very cool. And yeah, I think much need of the hour. Also, like, I would agree with the part about the productivity being commoditized because, uh, like, I think this is time that most of us spent a lot on tools and both time, money, effort. But yeah, like now with AI in picture, it's like, of course, a large part of our expenditure is still going to those AI tools, but it's also like in the hindsight helping us converge a lot of the use cases that we had with, like, speaking in a PM's language. It's like trying to make you do a lot of things within that one tool. So yeah, like I think I'm looking forward to those changes that we would eventually have in, I would say, product building career, and in the journey of how a product gets built, because there's going to be like a lot of trends like you suggested a couple of minutes ago. Like some of those were very vital, and like those we're going to have many more trends that surface up, and yeah, like very excited to see where that goes.
My approach when I see all of these trends, and I'm thinking now about blockchain back in the day, or VR, right? Now it's all AI. But it's as a PM, I feel the responsibility to try to play with it. I don't see
Yes,
any downside in just
true.
exploring the possibilities. And
Yeah.
it's not about overcommitting to something. It's really
Mm,
about using it yourself and see what's out there.
yeah.
Because those are good learnings, even though you don't know exactly where you want to take those learnings yet.
Yeah.
And I think we're in those early stages now with AI for product. Like, then we figure out how to monetize AI, if it's a usage based pricing, if it's a different type of pricing model. But like in general, I don't see any downside in just exploring the possibilities.
Yeah, like so one fundamental difference though that I see with respect to, let's say, something like crypto or Bitcoin and whatever we saw with the so-called trends a couple of years ago to AI is I like how AI has become like something that anybody can get started with. You're right with saying playing around with. And I think Chat GPT, or at least that's the very first consumer product that got very vital with people. And it literally became like a second word for anybody to say, oh, like, have you tried this out? Or did you just Chat GPT it? It's like, how did you Google it? And it's kind of become a very synonymous thing to it. So I think even though like AI is very new, one way that I would differentiate a trend versus something that is going to be a little pivotal, not exactly in your product, but in general from a knowledge perspective, is the fact that it's become very ubiquitous with people. Like it's become very like the bar has come to people, like it's come to being usable by people. So I feel like that was not the case with Bitcoin or crypto, because it was always thought about as a thing that was, oh, like it's a very complex thing to understand. I like the fact that AI is, even though like it is complex to understand, it's some pieces of that is already like reached people with respect to like even common people who are not into products. So I'm very like I'm very happy about that fact of AI.
That's what I love about product. First, it's you have to be curious to explore
Yeah.
whatever is there, but also you then realize it's not rocket science, right? Like it's not about breaking down AI to the technical level and becoming a PhD in data science. The same way when we were exploring blockchain, it wasn't about like creating your own blockchain, right? It's really about understanding the business component and how it connects to technology, and see if there is any business case here that makes sense, that helps your users get more value, and then for you to eventually monetize part of that value. I
Right.
always like to start from that type of perspective. And if that
Mhm.
stays true, then we can go as deep as necessary. And then we also have teams that can help us, explore in some dimensions that are maybe too technical for a PM.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I agree with you. Awesome. Carlos, this was an amazing conversation. So there's so much that we discussed with respect to community, product, and I love digging into the other side or the other story of Product School, because we literally spoke about the whole upbringings of the community and what people see today as 2 million folks on it, how it started as baby steps, and all of the pictures, I think, stitched together in the hindsight, but also the struggles that came with it. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing all your anecdotes and personal stories. And I had so much fun, and I'm so happy we finally got to speak. So, yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I want to make myself available to you or anyone listening. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, I actually block time every single day to answer messages. I believe that no matter how big the company becomes, ultimately it's about people. And I don't want to lose that touch with reality.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, folks who are listening, drop your questions. And Carlos is reachable on LinkedIn, and we both have like actually chatted up on LinkedIn DMs. So yeah, like I can attest to that. So he definitely like responds to messages and takes conversations going. So yeah, shoot your questions to him. And yes, thanks again, Carlos, and all the best with the community. And looking forward to being a part and also like championing for it.
Thank you.